Hello, humans. All right, so I got an email. I'll let you read it on the screen. But so essentially, you asked, why would marriage not exist in the life to come? And if God's nature is consistent, wouldn't it be inconsistent to have marriage in this life, but then not have marriage in the life to come? Now, that's a really good question. It is such a good question. All right, so the concept of marriage here on earth and the absence thereof on the new earth, it certainly does seem like a mind-boggling contradiction at first glance, right? So when I first became a baby Christian after having lived my life as an atheist, I also struggled with this same question. Like, why marriage here but not there? However, examining details separately, they might help us to understand the whole picture, right? So, like if we zoom in too far, sometimes it's more difficult to understand what we're seeing, right? But if we just zoom out and we get an outside perspective, then we can actually see the bigger picture. So, why did God even create Eve as a partner for Adam if God knew Eve would be deceived and thus bring sin to Adam and into the world for everyone? In fact, why did God even put the forbidden fruit in the garden if God knew that they would sin? So, understanding God's omniscience and ultimate end goal plan, that helps us understand why God did everything he did. And I explain this in great detail in another article. So, forbidden fruit, go check that out. Maybe even pause the video, come back when you've checked that out. But next, so knowing God's omniscience, that is the why behind the who and the what, and it helps us to understand the concept of marriage going forward. So if there's no marriage in the new life to come, well, why have marriage here on this earth? Well, the purpose of marriage here on this earth, well, it serves at least the following functions. So that we may be fruitful and multiply, and reproduction comes only from the intimate sexual relations between the male and the female. Thus, God's design is to be glorified in the male-female connection and only the male-female connection. So you're going to have to see my other article for details concerning that topic, defending marriage. However, having sexual relations with just anyone and everyone, well, that's sexual immorality, which God has commanded us not to do. Well, why? Well, because sexual immorality, it has nothing to do with love, everything to do with lust. It has nothing to do with loving others. It has everything to do with serving self. Love must be defined, and you're going to have to check out my other article for details on that topic. What is love? So, God desires that the human race multiply. Well, the more the merrier. But God desires the multiplication process to be done out from love, not lust. However, God knows humans will sin through his omniscience, but he's planned accordingly for everything that humans will do. Also, marriage here on this earth proclaims the importance of being faithful and loyal, even through the difficulties and challenges that come with the lifetime covenant. And this is why marriage is for better or for worse. Marriage in this life teaches us how to truly love because it is so difficult. When the spouse does something you don't like, you don't just give up and walk away in order to seek your own pleasure and comfort. Instead, you work through problems. You learn how to love despite challenges. And through marriage, I should say, people also learn how to raise children, which will also teach them, a little bit about how God feels when his children, all of us, disobey. We can kind of see what that looks like for him to us. The entire process is for learning and for growth. Now, the book of Hosea truly shines a light on this truth, on how to remain faithful and love, even when our feelings tell us to walk away. So, why end marriage in the life to come? I mean, wouldn't that be considered a divorce? And doesn't God hate divorce? Well, No, it would not be considered divorce because marriage on this earth is for one lifetime here on this earth. And so the new life on the new earth is not the old life on the old earth. So fulfillment of the marriage covenant on this earth would be like a video game where you complete this level and then you move on to the next level. But is that consistent for God to do this? Consistent with God's nature and everything? Yes. So as it turns out, it is consistent with God's plan for completion. So in fact, that's why Christians no longer observe the ceremonial, judicial, civil ordinances from the Old Covenant prior to Christ. And you'll have to really investigate my other article for all those details. Should Christians observe the Torah? There's just certain things that were specifically for the Israelites, and then that was fulfilled, moved on to the next level. So God has designed everything from the beginning so that humans will learn, grow, and finally come into the complete creation He intended us to be. Now, marriage in this life serves specific functions, but in the life to come, all of us become the bride of Christ, and the roles will be different. Because at that time, we will all be the bride. And while brides do not marry brides, on the new earth, under the new heavens, the Lord is the bridegroom, the husband, and will show us what it truly means to love the bride faithfully. And because we no longer need to reproduce, well, there's no need for sexual intercourse and reproduction. Instead, I believe that the ecstasy one can only feel in very brief moments here on this earth, we will be able to experience consistently in the life to come without sexual acts. And in the life to come, because we will understand what true love looks like in action, well, we will seek the good for everyone, not just our own spouses or our own children. Truly, we will all be one in Christ. And the body takes care of the body, well, just as a single bride would take care of her own body. So ponder on this. Now, detectives say that there are three main motives to every crime: sex, money, and power. Now, all of those exist only to help us learn, grow, and come into completion for who we are designed to be, but none of them are important for the life to come. No longer will there be sexual acts, money will be irrelevant, and no one will be in power because the Lord will possess all power and control. Therefore, what is in this life not being what is in the life to come does not come into contradiction with who God is. Rather, it actually helps us come into completion with God, who God designed us to be from the very beginning. You have to remember, His omniscience, He knows everything from the beginning to the end. So He has designed everything that way. Now, in conclusion, so you asked when Adam and Eve's marriage would have ended. So when would Adam and Eve's marriage, when would it have ended? I mean, well, from the very beginning, God had always intended their earthly marriage just to be temporary in order to accomplish specific functions, which would ultimately aid in accomplishing God's will to having a fruitful multiplication of humans whom God planned to redeem and restore. God had a bigger plan from the very beginning. But humans needed to learn, grow, and eventually come to completion in Him. Now, truly, humans need this life and this earth as training for the new life on the new earth so that we can humble ourselves and truly appreciate the life that is to come. For if we know and experience the bad, we will truly appreciate the good. And it is written, we truly do not understand all that God has prepared and planned for us. However, God has given us a glimpse of what He has prepared for us. We can see this glimpse in Revelation chapters 21 to 22. And this is also how we know that not having marriage in the life to come, well, that will be consistent with God's unchanging character, because from the beginning, God has planned to change what we know into something better that we never knew. So, for example, we are going to have glorified bodies, which will not know sin, sickness, pain, or death. Well, Revelation 21 verse 1 says there will no longer be any sea. Revelation 21, 25, and 22, 5 says there will no longer be any nighttime. Thus, establishing a new way comes by the fulfillment of the old way. But God remains the same all throughout, because what he predestined from the beginning will come to pass in the end. God doesn't change. But sometimes God has circumstances change so that we will change. So there you go. It's not a contradiction for God's nature, and it all makes sense when you look at things through, well, try to look at things through God's omniscience. He did everything. He sees the beginning to the end. So I trust I know what he's doing. Correction. I trust he knows what he's doing. Not that I know. What do I know? I know I trust in him. So, okay.